Hey everyone, welcome to the Narcotics Anonymous Primary Purpose Group out of Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada. My name is Ben. I am a recovered addict. I'm going to be sharing a bit on step 12 today. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. In a sense, step 12 encompasses all of the steps. We must make use of what we've learned in the previous 11 as we carry the message and practice the principles of recovery in all our affairs. Individually and collectively, each step has contributed to the extraordinary transformation which we know as a spiritual awakening. Many of us have wondered how this spiritual awakening comes about. Does it happen all at once, or does it occur slowly over a period of time? While there may be great variations within our experience about this awakening of the spirit, we all agree that it results from working the steps. Our awakening has been progressive, beginning with a spark of awareness in the first step. Before we admitted the truth about our addiction, we knew only the darkness of denial. But when we surrendered, acknowledging that we couldn't arrest our addiction or hope for a better life on our own, a ray of light broke through the darkness, beginning our spiritual awakening. Though each individual's experience of a spiritual awakening varies, some experiences are so common as to be almost universal. Humility is one of these common factors. We first began to experience humility when we opened our minds to the possibility that a power greater than ourselves existed. For some of us, this experience was so astounding that we received an almost physical jolt from the knowledge that we weren't alone in our struggle for recovery. Step 2 allowed us our first glimpse of hope. That hope had an immediate and powerful effect on our despairing spirit, providing us with a reason to go on. So when I got to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I had a lot of oppositional defiance. I had a sense of entitlement. I came in with a here I am, fix me attitude. I was apathetic. I was unwilling to work the steps. I was unwilling to surrender to the program of Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't have a desire to stop using, okay? I had a desire to act out in inappropriate behaviors. I had a desire to hook up and get in relationships. I had a desire to find other people to use narcotics with. But lo and behold, as time progressed and things became more and more painful, I eventually got to a place of surrendering. Now, when I talk about surrendering, I'm talking about surrendering to the fact being that I cannot use drugs successfully. I'm absolutely powerless over drug addiction. Once I start using drugs, I cannot stop. My life becomes progressively unmanageable, progressively fast, okay? So I was unmanageable. I had an unmanageable life right from the get-go when I started using drugs. I was born an addict. I had other addictive behaviors before I started using narcotics, other addictive behaviors that I engaged in. I came from a dysfunctional family of origin. I lived always in a state of fight or flight. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, pushed inward, right? Which for me was depression, right? And I would come out sideways every once in a while, right? I'd blow my top and I'd act out in behaviors that were, that of an individual that had come from abuse. I came from a lot of abuse. I had post-trauma. By the time I started using drugs, I had, post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of my family of origin. A punishing family where I'm always looking over my shoulder, expecting to get beaten and living in fear and paranoia. So when I picked up the drugs right away, that was a sense of escape that I received. I received the sense of escape from my thoughts and from my feelings. I felt this sense of ease and comfort, and I just felt that this is exactly where I needed to be, right? Drinking each day, using each day, and that became progressively worse as I moved out of my family's home. I used every day in and out for close to 18 years. I have periods of blackouts where I can't remember what went on for periods of years when I was in active addiction because I just hammered the drugs. I used drugs day in, day out, and I could not stop. Everything I tried failed. And I didn't try stopping using drugs till I was about 15 years into drug addiction. That's when the last 3 years were so painful. That's when I got to Narcotics Anonymous. I was in and out of the rooms, and things were so painful, you know, that I just could not tolerate the pain of using anymore. In that sense, the drug stopped working for me, because what happened for me was, as soon as I used, I went straight to a place of psychosis. And I stayed in psychosis even when I, you know, was coming down and not using. I was in full-blown paranoia. I had delusions of, you know, paranoia, delusions of persecution, delusions of grandiosity. You know, I had, you know, I was bombarded by automatic thoughts. I couldn't slow my thinking down. I was all over the fucking map. And that started for me as a young child with attention deficit hyperactivity, right? I couldn't sit still in my own chair. As a result, I was punished for that in school. I failed at, you know, studies in school like mathematics. You know, I excelled in English. I did okay in English. I loved writing. I was a very creative boy. That's one thing I find about addicts. We are very creative and intelligent people. You know, and that's one thing I really admire about addicts. We're artistic, creative, and intelligent people, and we're passionate and we're enthusiastic, and we have a zest for life. When I got here, I was spiritually dead. You know, Narcotics Anonymous, in Narcotics Anonymous, we bring the dead back to life. And slowly I came back to life. In step one, I finally admitted that I was powerless, and you know, what that looked like for me was surrendering to the NA program. You know, I surrendered to the fact being that self-sufficiency is a lie. I cannot get clean and stay clean on my own. I cannot live life on life's terms on my own, because every time I do, I screw shit up. You know, I was incapable of making healthy decisions for myself on a daily basis. You know, I think there might have been 15 years that I didn't even brush my teeth. I was incapable of maintaining my hygiene during that period of time. You know, my whole focus, my whole center of attention, everything was based on drugs, finding ways and means to get more. I lived to use and I used to live. And, you know, in step one, when I got to Narcotics Anonymous and I surrendered to the fact being that, yes, I am an addict, this is way too painful, I can't keep going on, I started to accept the fact being that I'm a drug addict and I can't use drugs successfully. And this is when Narcotics Anonymous really started to work for me, right? And, you know, I'm grateful that I kept coming back to NA, you know, and I'm grateful that I was welcomed in the rooms of NA, you know, and I'm grateful that I had a sponsor that would call me out on my bullshit, and to this day I have that same sponsor that calls me out on my bullshit. I had a few other sponsors along the early stages of recovery, and finally I met a man that you know, has been able to help me out phenomenally in my recovery and help me become the man that I was intended to be. So I look back and I reflect on all the situations that happened to me throughout my life, and I'm grateful for all of the good and the bad, all of the ugly, all of the indifferent, all of the abuse, all of the trauma. I'm grateful for all of that because it's made me into the man that I am today. I have emotional well-being and emotional stability today. I have mental stability. You know, when I was out there using and when I first got to NA, you know, for my first decade, I had various manifestations of mental illness. I had high highs and low lows as a result of drug addiction, because every time I used, I went into a state of mania. And then when I'd come down, I'd be in a state of depression and suicidal ideation to the point of wanting to kill myself, and also homicidal ideation where I wanted to kill other people, right? Drugs completely took over my mind. You know, there's some people out there that say addiction is a choice. Addiction is not a choice when you're obsessive compulsive to that extent and your brain is locked right into finding ways and means to get more. It wasn't until a window of opportunity opened and I was able to take advantage of that window of opportunity that I was able to get clean and stay clean, okay? When I was beaten, I became willing, all right? So in that step one, I surrendered to Narcotics Anonymous and I accepted the fact that I had a progressive illness that was incurable, you know, and often fatal. This disease kills people. I don't want to be a statistic today. I don't want to die from this disease today. I don't like seeing people die from this disease. I want to help people today. I want to carry the message of Narcotics Anonymous to other people today. That's what our program's all about, Tradition 5, right? Tradition 5 is that we carry the message of Narcotics Anonymous, right? Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message that an addict, any addict, can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use drugs, and find a new way to live. I haven't had the obsession to use in 18.5 years. It's been lifted, it's completely gone. I've had periodic thoughts here and there, but I think about how insane that would be to go back to that way of life, and I'm so grateful for where I'm at today. I'm so grateful for Narcotics Anonymous and what it's done for me in my life today, and for what it does in the lives of people who I love and care about, people who are close to me, who don't have to see a raging sociopathic narcissist trying to fix, manage, and control, fighting everyone and everything, and with a lack of acceptance and the inability to practice spiritual principles. Now, we talk about carrying this message, that being the group's primary purpose. That too is my primary purpose in life. When I was out there in active addiction, I had no purpose and no direction. I wandered aimlessly for 18 years in the desert, right? And when I got to Narcotics Anonymous, I started finding a sense of purpose and direction to get well, and then to help other people get well. And today I'm mentally stable, I'm emotionally stable, I'm spiritually well today. I have a spiritual connection with a power greater than myself that has restored me to sanity. I was restored to sanity in step 1. Okay, we talk about restoration to sanity from drug addiction, and in step 1, when I admitted that I was powerless and my life was unmanageable, right then and there, I recovered. I had recovered from drug addiction right then and there, okay? I was restored to sanity from using drugs. Step 1 is a step that I only need to do one time, and one time only, when it comes to drug addiction, all right? Then I go on in my life and I'm living my life and I see other manifestations of my disease come up, and then I have to take that back to step 1 and work that. Today, I'm powerless over drugs if I use drugs, but I have power of choice as to whether or not I want to use. I don't have a throbbing obsession in my head to use narcotics. And that's the gift that Narcotics Anonymous gave me. Working this program killed my obsession to use drugs. Our literature talks about how something inside of us cries out for failure. We're self-destructive people by nature. That's all tied in with fear. And as we continue to progress and work through the 12 steps, we get set free from the fear that binded us to the past. Fear of deprivation, fear of inadequacy, fear of humiliation, fear of rejection, fear of betrayal, fear of abandonment, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of death. All these fears that controlled my behavior no longer control my behavior to the extent that they once did, if at all, for the most part. And that's truly a divinely inspired gift that I received through Narcotics Anonymous. We are a spiritual program, not a religious program. People who are religious are welcome in the rooms of NA, but religion and politics are outside issues, and we don't share about those in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. We do share about things such as complete and total abstinence from all mind and mood altering narcotics, that's something that I have today, right? And fully blessed today. So thinking about step 1, where I was restored to sanity from drug addiction in the first step, I was no longer using. Step 2, I came to believe that a power greater than myself, that Narcotics Anonymous, could restore me to sanity. I saw other people getting clean and staying clean, and I was starting to experience clean time. I was getting time in. I had a few weeks in, 2-3 weeks to a month. At a month clean, I started working the second step. And I started seeing how Narcotics Anonymous was changing my life and the lives of those around me. People were generally happy. They had a sense of well-being. They were able to face their trials and tribulations, their challenges in life, with integrity, without running and hiding, without living in self-pity, without acting out in behaviors, geared towards hurting themselves and others, and that's the beauty of Narcotics Anonymous. It sets us free from our defects of character. NA corrects defects of character. defects of character that I had when I first got to Narcotics Anonymous, like people pleasing, approval seeking, caretaking, being a martyr, being a rescue ranger, justifying and rationalizing my actions and my behaviors, minimizing things, sweeping them under the rug, sensationalizing, right? Making the cracks in the wall, making the Rocky Mountains out of cracks in the wall, right? You know, I acted out in all sorts of insane defects of character, which are the symptoms of my illness. Manifestations are food, sex, money, relationships, codependency, so on and so forth. And symptoms are my defects of character. Defects of character are selfishness, dishonesty, fear, and resentment, and what lies under that are my shortcomings. Defects and shortcomings are one and the same, but my shortcomings are, like I said earlier, rescue ranging, caretaking, approval seeking. God has removed so many defects out of my life, completely corrected my defects. As I continue to progress, I see new defects come up. That shows me that I'm growing and that I'm changing, right? I'm evolving today. You know, I'm not stagnant today. I'm not living in apathy, complacency, procrastination. I'm not acting and behaving like a victim, blaming everyone and everything. I take full-on responsibility for my actions and my behaviors today, and I act with integrity to the best of my ability, okay? And, so when I think about step 2, how I came to believe that Narcotics Anonymous could restore me to sanity, you know, that was a slow process, but I seen it because I was staying clean. In the 3rd step, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. Okay, at that point, I'm turning my will, which is my thinking, and my life, which is my actions and my behaviors, over the care of Narcotics Anonymous. NA is God as I understand God. I have an outside belief outside of the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous that I don't bring into the rooms of NA. I keep it really simple. You know, Narcotics Anonymous restored me to sanity from drug addiction. I turned my will and life over to the care of Narcotics Anonymous. When I speak about that, I'm not talking so much about the fellowship. The program of Narcotics Anonymous is the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and the spiritual principles that are found within these 12 steps and 12 traditions that are guiding principles that guide my actions and my behaviors, that guide my way of thinking today. You know, the 12 steps are a form of behavioral modification. They've modified much of my behavior that I had when I got here that was antisocial in nature. You know, I lived in isolation, I was disconnected, so on and so forth, and I talked a little bit about that. Today I totally feel connected and like I belong in this world. So when we talk about step 2, it says here, though each individual's experience of a spiritual awakening varies, some experiences are so common as to be almost universal. Humility is one of these common factors. We first begin to experience humility when we opened our minds to the possibility that a power greater than ourselves existed. For some of us, this experience was so astounding that we received an almost physical jolt from the knowledge that we weren't alone in our struggle for recovery. I received that jolt coming to the rooms of NA. I found other people that were just as crazy as me, you know, just as insane as I was, and that were working on themselves and becoming more and more sane, right? Today I have absolute insanity. I'm not insane in any area of my life today. I've been restored to sanity from each and every manifestation of my disease today. I don't live in obsessive compulsive behavior today, and for that I'm grateful. For many years clean, I lived in obsessive compulsive behavior and various manifestations of my illness. I would check out on myself. I would betray, reject, and abandon Ben because I felt Ben was unworthy and undeserving. Lo and behold, with time, that all changed. I realized that I am adequate, and humility that we're talking about here is really just having a realistic view of who I am and where I fit in this world. I look at all my defects of character, but more importantly, I focus on my assets today. I look at my assets. I have an asset list. I know that Ben is a good man today. He's loving, he's caring, he's hopeful. You know, he loves to help people. He doesn't put up with bullshit. He sets boundaries. He does not allow people to walk over him. You know, he's not a doormat today. When I got to NA, I was a doormat. I don't blow whatever way the wind blows today. I have concrete value and belief system that I stand on today. And, you know, Narcotics Anonymous gave me that. The 12 steps gave me that. You know, my value and belief system comes from our literature. It comes from lived experience being clean. You know, it comes from, you know, having a relationship with a power greater than myself. And, you know, we talk about that humility is just being our own true selves, being our authentic selves, being exactly who we are, right? And that's where the best growth comes from, just being myself, being true to myself, right? Because then I see where I make mistakes, I get humiliated along the path, I become humble rather than having a grandiose, arrogant, self-righteous ego, and my ego continuously gets deflated in NA. And, you know, that's what NA is, a program of ego deflation, not ego inflation. We're here to deflate the ego, the addict ego, that tells us that we can do it alone, that tells us that we don't need the program, that we don't need to work the steps, that somehow we're terminally unique, hip, slick, and cool. It's based on resentment, fear, dishonesty, you know, all of these defects of character that we have when we first come into the rooms. And that we've carried with us all of our lives, and it takes time to change. We're never going to be perfect. This is a program of progress, not perfection. So I don't demand perfection from myself or others, but that doesn't mean that I don't call out inappropriate behavior in myself or others. You know, that's something that I've learned over the years. Now I know, go directly to the source. If I have a problem with somebody, I go directly towards that individual today. I don't fear conflict today. I have no fear of anyone in Narcotics Anonymous or in the world in general today. No fear at all. You know, and Narcotics Anonymous has given me the ability to walk through my fear, you know, to not take on fear, you know, and so long as we follow the NA way, we have nothing to fear. Our literature backs this up, right? So in the fourth step, I find some humility, but on the way, you know, it says here, step 2 allowed us our first glimpse of hope. The hope had an immediate and powerful effect on our despairing spirit. I was full of despair when I got here, and Narcotics Anonymous gave me a reason to go on. It gave me a reason to live. And that's why I'm so passionate about carrying a message of recovery to the still suffering addict, because Narcotics Anonymous gave me a life beyond anything I ever dreamed possible. My desire for something different prompted me to a deeper level of surrender. So now we're into the third step where we gave up more. Okay, we give up more in the third step. Not only did we admit that we couldn't control our addiction, we went on to recognize that our will and lives would be better left to the care of Narcotics Anonymous, our higher power. Paradoxically, in this admission, we found our greatest strength. As we worked the third step, we began to understand that we could tap the limitless resource of our higher power for everything needed to heal us spiritually. That's a very profound statement, right? As we worked the third step, we began to understand that we could tap the limitless resource of our higher power for everything needed to heal us spiritually. Narcotics Anonymous has offered me a limitless resource by which I've been able to heal spiritually. Okay, now the spiritual, when I heal spiritually, my mental, emotional, and physical health all line up, right? And in particular, my mental and emotional health, my well-being today, you know, is that of a person that practices spiritual principles, not of a person that's in full-on resistance and opposition. So, you know, for me, I've been able to heal all of my past trauma through working the 12 steps. I no longer have PTSD flashbacks. I no longer, you know, have delusions of paranoia, of persecution, thinking that the world's out to get me. I'm no longer looking over my shoulder. You know, I'm no longer triggered by the trauma like I once was when I first got here, if even at all today, okay? Like, I don't push people out of my life today. There are people who I want in my life and people who I don't want in my life. I set boundaries around that. You know, I don't allow inappropriate behavior, continuous inappropriate behavior in my life. You know, if people are going to keep attacking me or coming at me sideways, throwing sniper shots, whatever that may look like, I'm going to go directly to them and call them out on their behavior and ask them what the hell's going on. Okay, I don't start things with people today, but I don't walk away either. I will stand my ground with narcissists and sociopaths, both in and out of the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous. I will not allow people to walk over me, okay? That has to do with integrity. That has to do with self-worth and self-respect, which I gained through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. I gained self-esteem through applying these principles in my life each day. I am a member of the No Matter What Club. I believe that NA stands for never again. I never have to use narcotics again. Our literature backs that up. It says we have never seen a person who lives the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse. Hence, I live this program. This program is my life. Recovery is my life. My life is fully focused and centered in Narcotics Anonymous. I am grounded in Narcotics Anonymous. And for that, I'm grateful. And, you know, there's been resistance along the path. There's been trials and tribulations. There's been apathy and procrastination, complacency. You know, there's been, you know, rebellion against Narcotics Anonymous over the years. But I always came back because I always stayed, because I knew that Narcotics Anonymous, you know, had something there. It had set me free from drug addiction, and it could help me in other areas of my life. Although I've chased money, relationships, sex, you name it, I've chased it. Today I'm really grounded in reality. And our literature tells us that it's essential that we are grounded in reality. You know, so I can't afford the luxury of living in a fantasy today. My mind doesn't go to a place of fantasy today. I live in reality. I'm in the here and now. I'm not living in the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? I live in the here and now. I'm present. I'm fully engaged with this moment, and I'm emotionally available. The attention deficit hyperactivity that I was talking about, the mania and the depression, all of those things have been regulated through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. My obsessive compulsive nature has been regulated through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. My self-harming behavior has been regulated through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, so I've developed humility. And, you know, it says here, with our awareness of the exact nature of our wrongs, our character defects, and the humility inherent in that awareness, our desire to change increased dramatically as we work to step 6. So in the 4th step, I'm making a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. I'm looking at all these shame-based behaviors that keep me tied into active addiction. I'm looking at the people that I abused, the people who abused me. I'm looking at my selfishness, dishonesty, my resentment, my fears, and then I'm sharing that with God, myself, and another human being in the 5th step. And that's a freeing spiritual experience. It occurs in the 5th step because I get set free from the past. And then it becomes a decision as to whether or not I want to continue using the past as an excuse to beat up Ben today, to deem Ben as unworthy and undeserving. Okay, that becomes a choice. Whereas before it was autopilot, it was an automatic process where I was just unworthy and undeserving, incapable of giving and receiving love. Today I'm capable of giving and receiving love. I know that I'm deserving of love. I have loving, caring relationship with a partner. I have a beautiful wife in my life today who I love and care about, and I'm able to show love, care, and compassion towards her, towards my son, daughter, towards, you know, my, you know, other people in my life today. Narcotics Anonymous has given me the ability once again to be emotionally available, right? I am a compassionate man, and I'm a caring man, and I'm a loving man today. You know, and Narcotics Anonymous has also given me the ability to be gentle at times and to know when to stand my ground. And it's very important to know when to stand my ground and know what battles to pick today. I pick my battles very cautiously today. I try not to fight everyone and everything, and I can allow other people to be right even if they're wrong. And that's where a lot of my growth comes from, right? And I learned all of this through working the steps. You know, so I'm going to leave things right there. You know, the spiritual awakening that I had, it was a gradual process once again. It set me free from drug addiction. It's given me the ability to live happy, joyous, and free, and to work through all of my challenges, trials, and tribulations without self-destructing, without catastrophizing the situation, without sweeping it under the rug. I can face life on life's terms today. I've come a long way in 18 and a half years. I'm 52 years old today. When I came into Narcotics Anonymous, I was in my early 30s. You know, Narcotics Anonymous is just an incredibly beautiful program, And, you know, I just encourage people to get in the middle of NA, get on fire for the program. And in the middle, I mean in the middle of the 12 steps, be of service. You know, being of service helped me see my defects of character and my assets, my positive qualities, the way that I can contribute to society today, right? And that's available for each and every one of us. I'm not special. I'm not unique. I'm no different than other people, you know, in Narcotics Anonymous. And, you know, you too can have this beautiful way of life. You know, so I just encourage you to, you know, show up at some meetings, try Narcotics Anonymous out. If you're an NA member, I just want to thank you very much for being part of my recovery and helping me change and to continue to persevere and be vigilant over my recovery. Thank you.